One, two, three. Hi, good morning. This is Chani, and we are here on the IWD series of webinars, and we got Magda CHELLY today. Good evening, Magda.
Hello, hi Chani. So great to see you today on a Saturday in quarantine Saturday.
Yes, it's good morning for me. I just woke up and still got my coffee. So I try not to fall asleep. Thank you. It's so lovely to have you, and you're joining from Sri Lanka. Singapore, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm in London. It's really good, and yeah, it's lovely to have you finally. I know we had because we had a lot of people joining to do the IW webinars, and I was almost running out of slots. So it was really nice to have you this morning, and I got another person join later on. But just to give you a quick introduction of what I do and what CISO is. So I'm the founder of CISO Exec. It's an open give back platform to bridge the cybersecurity skill gap, diversity, and leadership gap. And our vision is to create a talent pool of emotionally intelligent cybersecurity leaders. How we do that is we started off with a 5-day boot camp that teaches everything around cybersecurity, gives a flavor of cybersecurity domains. Then also not only that, also leadership skills, communication skills, and personal development areas, plus emotional intelligence. I think we believe that all those skills are required for a good cybersecurity professional. And we started in 2018, did a 5-day boot camp, offered up to 100% scholarships to people from all sorts of backgrounds, from a farmer to police officer to lady CISO and a lot of people. And it was really successful. We conducted this in Sri Lanka, and then now we're planning to do another one. So 5-day boot camps, then what we did was we took them through mentoring calls. So we have monthly mentoring calls every third Tuesday of the month. We also have meetups. So we've had so far, three meetups in Sri Lanka, in London, 2 in London and 1 in Sri Lanka. And it's been really great. Unfortunately, with the coronavirus happening, we can't have meetups anymore for a while. So what we're planning to do is to go virtual. So we plan to have a virtual meetup, which means everyone in the world can join. Because when you have meetups, you struggle to get a lot of people in. But now that we are all working from home, we get to invite everyone. So look out for that. That will be happening in May or end of April. We haven't got the dates yet. And we were also planning to run a boot camp in London. But now, again, with the same reason, we can't run the boot camp, but we decided to go virtual for the first time. So we got lots of great speakers lined up to conduct the virtual boot camp, and we plan to give lots of scholarships to people to join. And it's a 5-day training still. So that is going to be happening in July. So tune in, and then you can also apply for scholarships. You can also apply to be a speaker, or you can apply to collaborate or sponsor us. So at the moment, the CISO platform is sponsored by Meta Defense Labs, my company. So what I do is I've been in the industry for about 17 years. Started off as IBM engineer, worked my way up to doing lots of different projects, implementation, infrastructure, then specializing into cybersecurity. And I felt the need that cybersecurity has always been the last thing in the projects where, it becomes the QA. It's been tested, have pen testing been done, And it was kind of frustrating because we always used to develop secure by design solutions, all the systems has to be secure when you develop, implement systems for big customers. So that's how Meta Defense Lab started. So out of this frustration, we said, why are we doing this way? Let's do it our way. Let's help customers design secure by design systems, and also maintain that or build cyber resilience. So we started Meta Defense Labs with some other colleagues. And since then it's been going on, and we got a bit a small team actually. We are in Sri Lanka as well as in UK. We have clients in Asia as well as Europe. So what we do is, my job is, I'm a cyber essentials assessor as well as I'm a virtual CISO, like Magda here. So we'll be talking a lot of good things. So, and a lot of interesting things. So I'm really keen to hear how Magda's journey been becoming a virtual CISO. I love it. That's kind of my favorite thing. I do all the other stuff, but virtual CISO is the best part, because then I get to take a client through a cultural transformation, a journey, and then having them cyber resilient. So that's a bit about us. How are you, Magda? How is the coronavirus situation going in Singapore? Have you been okay?
Well, thank you, Chani, for all the information and for getting me here on this webinar. It's really super fantastic, I want to say, and makes my Saturday much better with this, strict restriction of staying at home because of coronavirus, where the whole world is working remotely, and where the Friday and Saturday nights are becoming, just watch a movie at home, or eventually share some interesting topics across. So I would just say, as I mentioned before, we have been through the situation quite a longer. So Singapore have done amazing job into the containment. However, they were still very careful. So we have really a lot of social distancing in place. And this is part where my whole team is working from home at the moment. So I am a managing director of Responsible Cyber. I'll give you a little bit of background about myself. The company has been founded in Singapore in 2016. For my education, I'm a telecommunication engineer, and I had a master and a PhD in the same, which I obtained in France a long time ago. And I decided that only IT, and no offense to anyone only in IT, was just boring for me. So
yeah, I agree.
All the projects that I got at the beginning were like CRM, and there's like, I felt a lot of repetition. So I decided, okay, I don't want to specialize myself in that, and I would like to do something else. And my PhD was in indoor positioning. So basically I was tasked to find a system that could replace the GPS outdoor localization system within complex environments or buildings. So that was also very interesting, but with the complexity of signals, it was hard to find something that was very easy to implement. And again, I wanted something that was more intellectually challenging. So I've been like, jumping around, but honestly, I started cybersecurity when I was already doing my PhD, very long time ago. And when I started doing my research, I was so curious about other areas. Apart the fact that I had information security within my studies as an engineer, because the telecommunication diploma included programming. So I was programming in Java and C++. I was even programming in assembler, and definitely forgot everything about it. So I'm not going there back. But again, while doing this research, that put me back into trying to understand how things work and really how I can break them as well. And then went into the IT professional world, and I found myself put in a situation where IT consultancy companies were not mature enough in terms of cybersecurity services. So no one was actually buying cybersecurity. Everyone was buying IT digital transformation, CRM. Oh, wow. How do we call our customers from everywhere where we can? And that was the focus. So I really tried to bring something and evolve as a professional, something that can be more passionate for me. And that's how I landed, literally after several years, making cybersecurity as my career. So I literally fought for it because, again, the trend was IT innovation, transformation, digitalization, etc., etc. And then, of course, after evolving in the space, at some point in Singapore in 2016, I had the opportunity to evolve as a chief information security officer for a local insurance company. And from that, I decided that I really do my job really pretty well as a chief information security officer. So, and I really liked it. So I decided to continue doing that and provide it as a service. So CISO on demand, or chief information security officer on demand, or as a service, which is mostly not yet a complete virtual CISO, because the Asian culture really like the, seeing people still. So we do
Yeah.
not have, example, in Singapore, so much of working remotely is a CISO on demand. I go to my clients, I see them, and I stay with them in the office. So it's basically consultant as a CISO, you can say.
That's
For
very
some,
true. I have also seen that approach where, yes, people are still trying to adapt to that, because I have Asian clients, and if I don't go and show my face and show myself, they are not happy. So I also end up doing that. That's so true about that point.
yeah, exactly. So it's a cultural change, like you said, and a cultural transformation, not only around, cybersecurity, but as well around the overall working culture. So it's not anymore 9 to 5, but it's remote working, flexible working hours, etc., etc. So the maturity is different depending on the customers, and no matter if there's big or small, it's all depending, I would say, in my opinion, depending on the country, and how do they adopt those kind of technologies, and how they adopt new ways of work, and again, like digitalization, but not only to use smartphones, or but actually just to ensure that everyone is free in the way of their schedule of work. Like if you look at some countries like Indonesia and others, the smartphone percentage penetration in the market is very high. But would that mean that they all work, at home? No, it doesn't. So understanding the cultures for a chief information security officer, I think, is critical and crucial before even starting to assess the risks as such. Because, of course, when you're talking about cyber risk of the company, then we need to understand that around privacy, around data, how that will be handled, and what are the controls required as well afterwards. So that brings me actually to today's webinar, and what I really would like to share with the audience is, I think this particular topic will be interesting for information security professionals who are aiming to become a chief information security officer, or are just taking their first CISO assignment engagement. And the whole objective is to show and bring some of the quick wins, but as well some of the, reality checks where we think that this is how it is, but reality is completely different. And hopefully it will be very practical for some of the people who are watching and listening to us today.
Thank you. So I'll let you get on. I have a quick question, actually. In your journey, what kind of training you've done, and also who's kind of helped you in terms of mentoring and to get to where you are now?
So I'm a CISSP certified. So obviously I have done that whenever I decided that I would move to a CISO as a service, or CISO on demand positions or role, or, to my company. It is actually still very important for some companies to see that certification. But again, I had information security a long time ago in my studies already. And then, of course, part of my self-learning, which is continuous, I try to learn every single objectives and goals. What would I like to learn? And I take online trainings from different kind of websites like Coursera, etc. Knowing that most of my time I didn't have training budgets from companies that I either worked for, or either it was my companies. I always tend to reduce the training budget. So this is something that is also very practical and realistic, I think. Some companies ask individuals, oh, why you don't have 10 certifications? Well, they cost money. So if your company doesn't pay those certifications, someone who earns, I don't know, let's take an example, 6,000 euros and needs to pay, certification or training for 4,000 USD, that's a lot of money. So
Yeah,
I think
I know the feeling.
I think there is also this kind of, alignment where companies need to understand that certifications might be good into helping assessing the profiles, but they cannot be the only criteria, because they're excellent and very skilled people without certifications or without even diplomas. So again, it's basically understand the profile and how that person evolved in the career, and why do you think as a company that they can help you. So I had very, very unusual career, in my opinion, in professional, parkour, or how I learned, evolved. My studies were in different countries. As I said, my PhD was in France, but I studied as well in Tunisia, North Africa. I had my CISSP in Singapore, and I mean, across all those years, I had the possibilities to learn from different platforms, different cultures. So I think that is something as well that can help anyone who's listening to us. Just try to understand again, how are the different cultures, and how you can learn from different methodologies and different teachers across the world, because believe me, it's not the same at all.
It shows that you can adapt as well quickly to different cultures. I mean, something that I also like is that when you have worked in different companies plus different areas, you find your balance, rather than someone who's been in one country for all their life, to compare to someone who's gone into different countries, worked in there, and have experience. And then that shows that you have the capability to learn and adapt. I mean, when I came to UK first, I had a culture shock. It was I came here to do my degree, and I landed in Newcastle. I don't know if you've been to Newcastle.
Newcastle, no, I haven't been.
I was like thinking, what the hell are they talking? You know, I couldn't understand the English. I'm thinking, did I study the wrong English? Or, you know? And then suddenly someone was saying, oh, this is Geordie, by the way. This is what we speak. It's a different version of English. So I had to go for lessons at the university to, adapt to the culture and then understand what they, what they're talking about. And a few months later, I was talking Geordie, but yeah, it was just another way of, how you get around and then how you adapt to different languages and cultures. And I think you have... you got quite a lot of language skills there. So you speak about 6 languages? Is that correct?
5 fluently. 5.
Wow, that's awesome.
Thank you. I was, trying to speak and learn a few others, but unfortunately, if you don't practice, you forget, and the other point, I'm getting really old, so older and older. So learning a new language like Mandarin, which I have been trying since at least 2 years, haven't been really so easy as I thought.
Yeah, I know. Like sometimes when I go to Sri Lanka, like if someone asks me to do a presentation in English, I'll be okay. If someone asks me to do a presentation in Sinhalese, I'll be really struggling because not because I don't know the language, but you forget because you don't use it much. And last year, I think I had to do a news interview. Oh my word, that was such a challenging thing. I had to actually go tell the interviewer, say, I'll give you the questions or modify, then I'll also practice the answers. So I had to write all the answers down in English, go into Google and sit with my friend, get them into all Sinhalese, because I can speak Sinhalese and English both, but Sinhalese, there's a whole different language, which is a professional language.
Yes.
And you don't know how to continue everything in Sinhalese. So I was struggling because, you can have slang, but that's not how you talk in TV, right?
But it's the same when we're talking about, dialects, Tunisian, where I lived there for many years, and then Arabic. So if you tell me to talk about cybersecurity and what I'm doing now in literally the Arabic that you write, I will be like, okay, let me prepare myself first, because I don't use those words. And the same in Polish, and like you don't use those words every day, even if you speak fluently. I mean, you did not learn, cybersecurity 30 years ago at school, and you didn't use those terms at all. So they were not even within your vocabulary.
Yeah,
so
they didn't have vocabulary. It was so funny. I had to
Exactly.
Google translate a lot of the cybersecurity words, but I did it okay. I didn't use. I used maybe one or two English words, but I did it all in English. And some of the people were like messaging me saying, "Wow, I'm so impressed about your English." I'm like, "Yeah, thanks to Google and my friend." But yeah, it is sometimes challenging if you don't practice. But let me shut up and I'll let you go through. And I'll go on mute, and then you can start the presentation.
Sure. So please, Shani, let me know if you have any questions, because it's always better when it's interactive, and also the audience might learn much more from that perspective, especially that we
Sure.
do the same kind of engagement. So maybe you have something to add every time on few slides.
Of
So
course, yeah.
again, yeah, as I mentioned, I really would like to share some practical tips and what I have seen, learned while I was on my engagement as a CISO on demand. And especially this could be beneficial for new CISOs or people who are aspiring to become Chief Information Security Officers. And the first point would be to ensure that they know what they're getting and why they really would like to go into that particular career step. And what I actually have done, which I think is very interesting, is I have done a poll on Twitter. I wanted to understand, especially because I'm a very big advocate for diversity in cybersecurity, what is the percentage of females who are interested into becoming a Chief Information Security Officer? But I will come back to that after just, giving you a little bit of insights, what I will talk about. So I will address the CISO role and give you an overview how I see it. I'll give you the perceptions, the responsibilities from what I have done with my previous experiences and projects, from medium-sized companies to Fortune 500 regional CISOs roles, and then the quick wins, which I believe can be, again, the practical takeaways. But let me, talk about the great poll that I have done. So as a very ambitious professional, I thought, that the majority of information security professionals, especially female ones, will actually say, if someone would like to hire them as a Chief Information Security Officer, oh, hell yes, I want to take it on. And then to my surprise, actually the answers were not like, 99% yes, I'm going to become a CISO, that's what I want to do. And what is the most important here to understand is the perception. So the perception or the actual feedback from previous experiences is something that I thought it would be really interesting to share. Because when we are in cybersecurity, a lot of us share the passion of information security, helping a company to reach that resilience, building secure by design systems like you mentioned, Chani, and all this kind of stuff, where we really feel that we are giving that added value, we are changing something, we're making it more secure, better for them, we're protecting the privacy of the individuals, of the employees, we are ensuring that the systems will be available all the time, for example, when we're talking about critical infrastructure, etc. However, apparently the experience in several cases was actually that a CISO is not able to perform those activities and really make a change, due to the fact that it might be very politicized, or it might actually have some, a lot of choices that a CISO will need to make that will not be aligned with the values of an information security professional, or someone who is actually passionate by that and really wants to work for it to make a change again. So I think here, of course, everyone has a different experience, and everyone has different perception as well of certain roles and how it worked, etc. Being a consultant working from different companies, I think the advantage is that you see different scenarios, and especially you actually realize that there is no generalities about that particular role, that as in one company the CISO role might be perceived as a certain particular political role, and will have very tight hands, as in another company you will have a green field and you will be asked actually to make a change. And therefore, if you are in that particular opportunity, you will make a really drastic improvement for that company's culture, for that company's cybersecurity posture, but also for all the clients that are using that particular company's services or products. So I think, again, for anyone who is, watching us or listening to this podcast, and I would like to be also very clear, those answers were publicly published on Twitter, so they're available until now on my profile. Everyone has different experiences, but we need to understand that we still keep that hope that as being a CISO, we might have the opportunity to make a change, because we will have decision-making power, which as an information security professional, we might not have. And that's where I really enjoy what I'm doing when I'm working with my companies, and with my clients. And for the funny thing is, how did I end up in this particular role is because I was trying to, find something, as I mentioned, that is intellectually stimulating. And while I was doing my PhD, and even if I was trying to break things, I did mention that several times, I was trying to break Hotmail. So, I was really a little bit bored, like doing a lot of research and by myself in a lab, and then doing some, funny stuff. And then I decided to migrate and really use my skills into something that actually creates value. And then when I evolved as a trainer and a consultant and doing this IT stuff, and then had this opportunity to literally, a company not having at all any cybersecurity knowledge, anyone in the information security field, was in need to build all those capabilities, and especially adding the awareness. And that's how my first actual experience started. I was almost, I want to say, put out of my, I didn't ask for it. It just came in, and it's like, okay, we need you to come in as a CISO and build the team, build the capabilities, build everything. And I was like, oh, sure, I can do that. But it started like that. And I took on the challenge, and I loved it. I loved it. Why? I loved it because I felt that I can help build the right fundamentals, making sure that I not only, plan and talk with the company stakeholders on their cyber risk, but as well go hands-on and train their different teams, because they did not have any clue about cybersecurity. And this is something that I'm going to bring on again, because I believe as CISO that you need to have at least several skills around to address different kind of teams and departments and talk their language. If not, your mission as a CISO will fail eventually.
I have a question.
Yes.
The second picture, this is a very intelligent question, by the way. Is that you?
It is with Photoshop.
That looks like a bit of Celine Dion gone crazy.
Well, honestly, I still think that in some cases I do, look like that when either I hear something coming back from my customers, or I see something happening, or, when I don't sleep the whole night because I'm still working on something urgent that needs to be, again, part of the incident response team or something like that. Not talking about business continuity and remote working, but that's not that drastic. But in some cases, especially when the maturity is low, you might find yourself in a situation where you're fighting the human rather than fighting the system. So basically, that awareness, that training, that everything that you have put in place, even if it is effective in some ways, it might actually still have some gaps, and you need to address those gaps every day. And then something happens, and you need to wake up in the middle of the night and deal with it.
Yeah, I think the most challenging part is fighting the human sometimes, because systems, you have methods and ways, but convincing the human is the most challenging. And I completely agree with you. When you're doing something that I found is when I am doing the CISO services, I find it fascinating because each company is different. They're complete different cultures. And that's the best part about doing what we do, is going into understanding how they work in different environments. And one company may be like, oh yeah, they're really good with cybersecurity, but the culture is really bad. And then there's the other company that doesn't have anything, but the culture is wonderful. You want to work with them. And that has been a challenge, and it's a complementary challenge, sort of. It's really, you learn a lot and learn to work with people. So if you're doing a lot of cultural transformation, I think getting into working with the people is key, I think.
Oh yeah, definitely. And it's like you mentioned, every company has a different culture. And some companies are much more oriented towards very transparent communication, toward ensuring the best possible work-life balance. Some others have just, it's a decision actually. So the business owners decide that we're going to focus on productivity, and communication is not our priority, or, work-life balance comes after. It's different. But then at the end, if the business owners or the C-level executive or the board of directors, one, do not understand that cyber risk is part of their company's business risks, and two, they don't understand that cybersecurity is about process, people, then technology, they will fail. And this, no matter which company I've been working on or with, every time is the conclusion that we make. So unless the company has this approach and awareness about how that affects their business and why cyber risk is important and why they need to take in consideration the three pillars, they cannot succeed. And information security as such should be actually also enabling the business and be approachable. This is something as well that I really like to mention. And there's no point into putting policies and controls while employees are scared to actually send an email and ask about something, because they will be fearing that they will be fired or something like that. So there is a lot of cultural change and communication that needs to be part of any cybersecurity program and roadmap. If not, there is no point. Again, imagine a situation like nowadays where everyone is working remotely. Some companies didn't even have laptops ready. So how do you ensure that employees actually are not downloading all the documents everywhere on their local and home desktop, laptops, etc.? Because of course companies need to still give access to the emails and to the systems outside of the corporate environment. Yeah. But if they never communicated with the employees previously, then they cannot expect that they will know information security. We are not anymore in an environment where the controls were enforced by the information security technological part. We are in an environment with that there's a lot of other risks.
Yeah, I think it just shows, I mean, I can't comprehend companies who still haven't given people laptops and working only on desktops, because that shows that they haven't thought through their business continuity plans properly or disaster recovery, because that's probably one of the first things you do. What happens if your building collapse, all your desktops are gone, right?
and sure.
Yeah, so for those companies, I feel sorry for them, because obviously whoever who did their information technology process, they didn't think through to get laptops. And if you need laptops and desktop both, then have solutions which you can use remotely as well. I think that nowadays that's going to be a big challenge for a lot of companies to continue business if they don't have proper systems in place to allow their staff to work from home.
But I think it's a wake-up call as well to understand how much technology has changed our way of doing business as such, and also how much cybersecurity is impacting how do you operate. I mean, again, companies have Office 365, and I'm giving that as an example because it's the biggest market share currently. And they don't even have any idea of how Office 365 is configured. They don't even have, in some cases, two-factor authentication.
Yeah,
I mean,
don't get me started on Office 365. I've found about few breaches just working on different clients. You're so spot on there. It's crazy.
Yeah, so those kind of things do not they do not come by design. People don't know, and it's not by writing them in a policy on the internet that they will know. And that's I keep on saying that, because honestly, the same way as people do not read terms and conditions and they download software, the same way happens with internal policies and procedures. So there's no point into someone working as a CISO and saying, well, I'm having my security policies on the internet. Why the employees didn't read those? Because first of all, probably they cannot understand everything. And second, again, it's the human nature. They won't go and read it unless they need to do it. So in my opinion, the fundamental issue with cybersecurity is that we still have this approach of talking about it very much oriented towards technology rather than process and people. Technology should be by design, security should be by design, like the same as privacy. And before reaching that, because we are far from having that included as part of our designs and processes, we need to ensure that we talk the right language with our audience. So yeah, and this is as an example. I mean, I'm sure a lot of our audience have seen the CISO mind map, and this is just an overview, but I do believe that the CISO needs to have an understanding and capabilities across all areas and different areas. As an example, I worked a lot with the privacy teams, with the compliance team, with the legal teams, with the developers, where you need to talk with them the same language, and then you need to report to the board of directors with a way that they can understand, that is very clear, short, and focused on cyber risk related to the business rather than any firewall talks or this kind of things, which is absolutely not interesting for them because they're focusing on business. So yeah, and what happens when we're talking about CISO is when you find yourself, in a new company and this new engagement or a new role, where do you start and how do you start and what's the most important before even, starting building a strategy, building a roadmap, understanding the cyber risk of the company. What happened is, in my opinion, a lot of time is just about, overwhelmed by everything that's happening. I had engagements where I was the regional CISO for 14 countries, and therefore imagine all the compliance teams, the legal teams, the developers, etc., etc. How do you manage that you actually are able to understand how that company function, knowing that the statistics show that the average tenure of a CISO is only 24 to 48 months. Those are statistics, real facts. So I think it's extremely important to understand who from the business can help you to have that support in terms of people. Who are your allies? Who are the people who actually might become blockers for you to actually deploy or start your strategy and roadmap? It is extremely important for you to know as an information security professional, in my opinion, and especially as a chief information security officer, because you will need to roll out your strategy to be successful and have quick wins, especially at the beginning. But how to start, again, when you just don't know anything about the company? You can't focus on, again, security, risk, and privacy. You need to have at least a certain visibility of that company's posture. And how do I do that? And this is a personal opinion, unlike everything in this presentation is based on my personal experience and my lessons learned. I would definitely suggest one thing that I found very effective is try to understand the digital footprint of the company and see what kind of previous incident happened, data breaches, security incident, privacy incident. And by understanding that, you can gather a certain information about the posture and the company's maturity around cybersecurity. It's not only through the controls, because company can have technological solutions in place, but they are not configured properly. So it doesn't matter if you have your security assessment with a questionnaire, and then the team will tell you, yes, it's implemented. We have, for example, SFTP that is limited to certain IPs. I'm going a little bit technical because they might tell you that. But then you realize that if you go into an investigation and some a little bit digging around, you realize that there are certain things or services, ports exposed on the internet. Again, not going into penetration testing or something like that, but having a visibility on digital footprint of the company, including some previous penetration testing, previous security breaches, privacy breaches that you can actually learn from. So you understand how the company operates, what is the culture, and then you take it from there with the interviews and with your assessment to build and start understanding the cyber risks of the company. And what are the challenges that in general cybersecurity professional or CISO might face? In my opinion, is the available support. As I mentioned, it's really important to find who is happy to spend time with you and actually give you that visibility of what has been implemented and what not. If we think that as a CISO, we come to a company and everyone is waiting for us with open answers and yeah, sure, let's get an interview and go through what we have done wrong and what we have done right, that doesn't happen. Reality check, it's not the case. So find the ones who will support you on your journey and will give you that information. For the ones who are not ready to do so, either you find a compromise or either you find the way of, someone else can give you the information. I also use sometimes the fact that I could escalate the issues in case of critical, information that needed to be done. Then again, the lack of sharing of real tangible experiences, it's something that is really critical. And by that, a lot of scenarios in this particular point come to the fact that some of the business owners will tell you that yes, we understand our risks and we accept them. And this is true as well for very big companies. But as much as I say, yes, we don't own the risks as information security officers and as CISO, but you still need to ensure that the business owners understand those risks. It's no point for you to build all your strategy, roadmap, etc., while you know that anything that you report as risk will be accepted because the business owners and the stakeholders do have no clue. So it's also something that's part of the responsibilities of the Chief Information Security Officer and might be a challenge. Again, I mentioned the policies and the lack of clear, framework with steps ahead is something that, in my opinion, is often lacking across companies in cybersecurity implementations. This is the fact that companies think that having technical controls is enough, and there's no communication with employees, or the communication is just a few emails that you send to everyone. I was like, read, be careful of phishing, emails. Is that effective? Honestly, no. And we all know that, again, how we don't read emails. They're probably as well, hopefully we read some of those, but we know very well that majority of employees, they receive emails from the company. They might just delete them because they're busy with business. They're doing something else. They're busy with their own tasks. So having an actionable framework for also communication and to address people and process is extremely important as part of the challenges that a CISO might face. And how, the reality looks, and we've seen, the slide with the all CISOs capabilities or skills or activities that as a CISO should take control over, at least know about. Well, what I have done as part of my CISO activities, I have done training for developers on secure coding. Is that part of, what was in my KPIs within my job description? No, it wasn't. But if I ask my developers to integrate secure coding in their daily activities, I need to ensure that they understand what secure coding means. And if the company has a reduced budget around cybersecurity, they will not be able to send them all to train, you know, on secure coding somewhere else, or to have an online training for that. So I believe it's the responsibility of the CISO not only to take the actionable, you know, framework and have the strategy and roadmap in place, but as well to ensure that if there is no budget to have external tools or solutions, to take that additional step and ensure that actually they can build the right path for success for their teams. So again, training the developers on secure coding, but I have actually as well helped to fix findings after penetration testing, because again, if you ask your teams that are working in other departments to align with you, you need to ensure that they trust you and they can rely on you if they do not have the right maturity to address those, you know, those requirements or what you are expecting them to do. I also have taken the opportunity to just talk and discuss with the IT supports, level 1 support, the ones who actually take calls from employees. Do they even understand what is cyber information security incident? Well, those are questions that you need to ask yourself as a CISO. Again, no problem into writing your beautiful policies and standards and etc. But if the team do not have the capabilities, or you send an awareness email, that will not make you successful. The company will not reach an efficient and realistic cyber resilience. They will have, they will feel actually that they are secure, but they will not be. And it's even much more dangerous.
Yeah. I think some of the challenges is like a lot of companies don't have dedicated security, like you said. So how you train everyone to understand that security is everybody's responsibility is key, I think. So part of the cultural transformation also make it everyone's responsibility. So you're cross-training staff plus having different champions maybe into different teams to take responsibility around security. I always have this documentation, accountability, evidence approach. You know, so you get everybody to be responsible. Plus, you give ownership of different tasks, and people come up because often the board excuse is we don't have enough staff and we don't have budgets for training. But then train the existing people who are already in, cross-train them. And that's really good point that you made. It's just how you cross-train people to be aware of cyber risks and how to tackle problems.
You need also to build that environment so they succeed. There's no point, again, into, you know, writing or trying to say that we have those kind of controls if no one actually understands the security. And I think a lot of times we forget those areas. We forget that developers are not trained in cybersecurity, that IT support teams and IT managers are not trained in cybersecurity, that business people do not understand cyber risk perhaps, and as well that board members might not have any clue about cybersecurity at all in some cases, and especially depending in the business evolved, you know, it only those latest years into a digital business, where previously it was a traditional business based on, you know, not like digitalization. There was probably maybe some desktops, but not like today. Today you can work from anywhere and, you know, on your laptop through SaaS, PaaS, yes, etc., etc. So not everyone is aware, not everyone understands. So as a CISO, the responsibility, in my opinion, is to ensure that you build an environment that will help you to succeed in the way that you actually implement your cybersecurity roadmap and strategy. And this brings me again to the fact that if you look at the policies and how many people actually read the policies, we know very well that terms and conditions are very read by people. The same applies for internal policies of companies. So take the time to actually, when you come, give an awareness training about the internal policies of the company, if they have already some. Explain why you actually have, for example, a policy that do not allow password reuse. And don't just enforce rules without taking the time to do it. And now I get a question very often, like, how do you do it if you have a company of 60, 70,000 or even more employees across the world? Well, I do regular webinars all the time with employees for my clients. Why? Because that gives also that additional layer of I'm approachable. You can ask me any question if you have any question around security, around privacy in certain cases, around the policies. They know where they are. Someone is talking to them for real. So they know that security is not just a tool, that there is someone who's helping the company become more resilient. And the discovery session around the policies of the company has been very successful. And I guess it would be very interesting for anyone who hasn't done that. The outcome might be very surprising.
And the other thing is, keep your policies simple and stupid. I call the KISS approach. Keep it simple, stupid, so that people will read it. But if you make your policies like long, 50 pages, 40 pages, no one's going to read them. So you need to have the policies written in such a way, at least your security policy, written in such a way that it is understandable to any member of staff in the organization. Plus you give the right training so that they can't tell you that, yes, I didn't get any training, I didn't know, because everyone understands it. I think that's also really key for a CISO, to make sure that all your employees, all your staff, not employees, staff, understands that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, the next point that I'm actually wanted to mention again is the secure coding, and the part where, we as information security professionals, we tend to, write in our policies, you need to follow secure coding practices, top 10 OWASP, SANS 25, blah, blah, blah. And it looks very nice on paper. Reality is that developers are not trained in cybersecurity. Even if a lot of them know about top 10 OWASP, a lot of them do not know.
I think it's the training, education. Sorry to stop you. Like in the past, where I've been in a lot of training programs during my degree as well, where you teach programming, but not a single programming course in the past has taught you, yes, you need to do secure coding, right? That's probably where it's still happening.
Absolutely. I didn't have in my engineering school, when I had to learn Java, I didn't have secure Java. It was Java. That's it.
Exactly.
You were coding to ensure a functionality, not to ensure a secure functionality. And the difference is very big, especially nowadays. So again, the maturity is shifting. We are changing, and we are trying to, go into a secure by design. But we need to be aware and understand that not everyone has actually had that training before. So give them the opportunity to study, to understand how to improve their developers' skills, how to ensure that they code with the secure coding practices, etc. And even from my own, my own experience, I was searching for developers with secure coding backgrounds. I couldn't find for several months.
It's very difficult. I don't know such degrees still, like, even some of the training programs never included the secure coding part. Now that's why they got this DevSecOps. But if you do your development right, then you don't need DevSecOps, right?
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. So, so I think it's really important to realize that and put it just very clearly there. And, again, especially when the company has a budget that is limited, help people help you. That's my message here. And then this brings me to the identity and asset management. Of course, this is something that, is, I guess, a challenge for all companies across the whole world. I mean, if you look at the different asset inventories, from your antivirus, reports, you find a certain number of endpoints. From your CMDB, you find another number, etc., etc. So you don't have 100% control unless you actually have regular overview of all those different databases, and you try to aggregate and see what are the gaps and why you have very big gaps if you have very big ones. But trying to find actually, or thinking that having the inventory from one person, from your IT manager on an Excel file, will be the answer of all your questions, and that's how you should rely on, is something also that might lead to, security by obscurity, where you think that you have something, but you actually are missing a part of your assets and you don't know what's happening out there. Same comes when we're talking about identity management and thinking that all your systems have SSO or single sign-on in place, and you implement certain policies on your single sign-on, but you realize that your business have acquired some systems and they just, log in with different passwords, and there's customer data without assessment of the security and privacy of the systems, which happens. That's the reality. So having a certain, approach that is multidisciplinary, holistic, helps you to achieve better visibility, a better strategy, better roadmap. But the fact that your asset management is not a single point, where you can rely on, and especially I've seen a lot of cases of the IT manager having this challenge of updating the asset management file or an Excel file. It still happens today, and I'm not talking about an SME. Let's be realistic. I'm talking about Fortune 500 companies. So we need to realize that this is, again, the reality. So if you would like to become a CISO who's actually doing something efficient, making change for the company, take a proper look at how to enable people to help you. And those are the challenges, some of them. When it comes to vulnerability management, though, this is also related to the asset inventories, but as well from the fact that I have seen certain situations where we're only playing on numbers and, putting pressure on the teams to reduce the overall numbers, but not looking at the severity, and not the severity of, CVEs, and that's it. Oh, this is very high. But is it exploitable in that particular environment for that particular company? Who can help prioritize? Because if you have 17,000 vulnerabilities per day, you can ask your team to patch all of them in one day, or 24 hours, 72 hours. So it's also something to be realistic and have a strategy around vulnerability management, and also raise awareness about how do you, report those numbers to the board. Have a proper way of categorizing those vulnerabilities rather than just giving numbers and throwing them at the board. Because if you have 10% of critical vulnerabilities exposed to the internet, then you haven't done anything, where you're telling to the board, don't worry, we have addressed 90% of them. So again, this is something that I think in some cases might be a mistake, to just play on pure numbers rather than going into additional categories. And I think also, when we're talking about cyber risk or report to the board, we shouldn't talk about technical vulnerabilities as well. The cloud security is another areas where I think a CISO might be facing a challenge. The shared responsibility model is not something that is understood by IT managers or just business people in a variety of scenarios, or I don't want to say majority, but a lot of cases that I have seen lack an understanding and visibility about the responsibility that they have. And they do still think that the cloud service provider will take care of the overall security, with a lift and shift approach, basically, where the CIO or the IT manager say, let's get them all on the cloud, and that will make us, reduce our budgets, better security, blah, blah, blah. But there's no proper strategy, no proper security and privacy taken in consideration while the migration happens. And that, of course, leads to a lot of breaches that we have already seen across the newspapers, and all, the previous months haven't been the best in terms of, cloud adoption security, I want to say, because every now and every day we see something around that, you know, Amazon S3 backend not configured properly, or documents publicly accessible, etc., etc., etc. And again, in my opinion, this is due to the fact that there's this perception of from the non-security folks that this will be taken care by the service providers. And even though service providers have done a great job by talking about the shared responsibility all the time. So how do you do that if you're a CISO and you have a team that is planning the cloud security migration or cloud migration, sorry, just ensure that you are ahead from the beginning part of the project and involve the right stakeholders as well, so privacy, legal, etc. You can't rely on the business side or the IT managers or the CIOs of the companies to have the visibility of or the implications of the security risk and the privacy risk of a cloud migration. And then, of course, this brings me to the fact that if you let it go and, you know, you are not involved from the beginning, that the responsibilities or the consequences might be dramatic afterwards. So they come either in a hurry and tell you, oh, by the way, we need to implement the security on our cloud environment, and that will be really hard for you. Or either there will be a breach and you will find yourself in a very hard situation as well. The next point, which I already mentioned as well, is the incident response. And this is something in particular around, you know, who gets the first calls from the employees when there is a problem? Is the level 1 support. So if the level 1 support is not able to understand what's an insecurity incident or security event, how are you sure that you have the right, you know, support or assistance for your company? I mean, it's not about having a malware on the laptop of the employee and having an alert from your incident response team. It's also from all the phishing attempts. I mean, how many times you see an employee entering the credentials on a phishing website, and then because the company doesn't have an MFA, the account is compromised, and then the employee never even is aware that the account has been compromised. That's the reality. So ensure that you actually train or give the right information to the level 1 support in the company across all the security incidents as well, categories. Give them simple training and awareness around that. That's specific to them and not just general awareness. Help them help you. Again, I'm giving repeat, your success as a CISO does not come with only you. You need to have the right people supporting you, and they cannot support you if you don't understand, they don't understand what you're doing or what you're trying to do. And then, of course, backups, which is also something that's extremely important for cybersecurity strategy. I mean, obviously, a lot of companies, when they have a certain level of maturity or, you know, IT operations, they have backups in place. However, having that visibility of the testing of the backups and assurance program is something that I would advise to take much more detailed look at, because as much as the team can follow a process, but they might actually miss certain things. Either they're missing certain backups or they're actually not testing properly. And then you need, of course, to ensure that it's aligned with the business requirements and how much the business is ready to lose in terms of data as well, which might change, especially with the environment and the digitalization that we are currently living in.
I think that's an interesting point you made about backup, because backup often falls under IT.
Yes.
And they, you know, because they think, yes, we have to do it, but the CISO's role is to make sure that the backups are working and they're secure. You know, verifying is important. The two aspects of security is, you know, having your functionality requirements and assurance requirements. So CISO's job is to make sure that whatever you put in is working as you expect it to work, right?
Yeah, and let's take an example. You have your backups, and then you have digital backups because you're in the cloud, but at the same time you're backing up on the tapes. Where are the tapes? Where do you store them? How do you override them? Or do you at all? What's the retention, and how do you ensure that is aligned with the compliance, and you can work with the compliance to ensure that? There's so many aspects, but again, it's about a holistic view as well. And your responsibility is to have that visibility. If you don't have that visibility, you cannot give any assurance to the business stakeholders or to the board, telling them that yes, we are actually doing the right thing. And of course, again, bringing the third party management is something that is extremely important here, because what I have seen a lot of times is having a third party management team, or one person doing an assessment of third parties with an Excel file or an online questionnaire. In my opinion, and this is personal opinion, 50 to 70% of the cases are completely useless assessments. Why? Because they are irrelevant to how and your environment as a company. How will you use the solution, and where the solution will be used, in which conditions, what environment, etc. So again, make sure that the assessment that you have in place, or the strategy to assess your third parties, makes sense, because when you have 200,000 vendors, you cannot assess them every in the same way, like, you know, with 1 hour of questionnaire and going through all the details. But define a classification for the ones that are critical, and ensure that you have visibility for the ones who are storing personally identifiable information, for the ones who are actually storing any financial information, and have the right assessment. It's not about a check the box exercise. There's no point in doing that, because if there is a breach, there is a breach, and you are liable. And especially if you are a CISO, then that will fall down onto you. So this is actually something that, yeah, it was a last point that I wanted to share with you. And then, of course, when it comes to, you know, ensuring your career and your career evolution or success, make sure that actually, as I said, help people help you. Find the right mentor, because no one knows it all. So it's not like you're going to go into a company and understand everything. Technology can be different. The landscape can be different. Regulatory environment can be different. Find the right mentor who can help you. Understand that it's important to have a certain technical background. This might be controversial, but I do think that in my case, understanding developers, understanding, you know, penetration testing reports is helping me, because I can go and talk to the teams and mentor them, train them if required. Networking and engineering as well can be something that, you know, is an advantage, of course. And being part of industry groups is always something that will help you in the career. Again, it's not about just certification or diploma. It's about having the right discussions with the right parties. Everyone has a different experience. You might learn how to talk to certain stakeholders in the company. You might learn new tips on how to build your strategy and make sure that it's efficient, how to monitor success, how to define your KPIs, how to ensure that you evolve in your career, etc. So, and of course, it's a continuous learning. So you can't just say that because I have been a CISO for 6, 7, 8 companies, that's how it is. No, because again, every company is different. Industry can be different. Country can be different. Size, maturity. There's so many criteria that makes it unique. So coming back to the first slide, where the perception of a CISO role was that it might be this and this kind of, you know, role, political role, a role that is not hands-on, etc. It really comes down to a particular company. It's not the same for each and every company, is different. And the level of hands-on depends very much on the budget and maturity, not the size of the industry. Because it depends on how much budget the board has assigned for that particular cybersecurity department, for the cybersecurity as a whole, how big is the team in terms of cybersecurity, what is the maturity of the company, what are they cyber risk, because when you're talking about cyber risk, we can have certain companies that have fraud as their top risk rather than, you know, phishing or other cyber risk. So again, a holistic approach, an approach that is not from one experience or one point of view, but just from various experience across the board and across, you know, discussion that you can see or listen, hear from other experienced CISO. And I keep on discussing as well myself, and I have mentors as well in my own career, which I think helped me a lot achieve what I am able to achieve today. And they still continuously helping me to help my clients. So all those parts are really, really very critical for someone to move in the career as a CISO.
Great. I think mentoring has helped immensely for me as well, because also sharing knowledge sometimes, like these sessions even helps you, because sometimes you think, oh, this is the way you do it, but then things change so fast in our industry. So it's always good to verify with your fellow CISOs to see, you know, what do you think of this, get feedback, and also tailor these different elements to suit the company, their risks, their regulations, their future strategy. So aligning your strategy into the company's strategy is key as well. And like you say, always ask questions and verify with people, have discussions. That's the best way you learn, because not always you could be doing lots of different, working with lots of different companies, but still there's another smarter way. But if you don't talk to people, your peers, you'll never find out, get ideas, right? So mentoring and networking has helped me so much in my career, in terms of learning things as well as finding new ways of doing things, being innovative and creative. I think that's really key for a CISO as well. Because you always have to, like you mentioned, budgets, right? You will always have to work with what you got most of the times. How do you work with what you got? It's all about being creative and innovative, and it's a good challenge, but it's finding how do you do that is the key. So not everyone has the capability to go and buy the fanciest gadgets and tech. I don't believe in buying the tech first place, because I think you should first look at the people and the process, then look at the tech, and then make those investments. But if you don't have anything, start with your basics, ABC, and try and work with what you got, rather than trying to say, look, you can't do this, we have to get this thing in and that thing in. That puts off people as well, the board. So it's the CISO's skill is to how do you adapt and then work with what you got and improve current situations as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, as a summary, it's really, for me, I think it's important to understand what you want to do as an information security professional. Because again, I love what I do, and I love being a CISO for companies, but not everyone does. So finding what you are good at is really important. Then defining a career path. So if you don't want to be a CISO, it's absolutely fine, but then what's your career step? Because you need to keep on going, you need to have goals, you need to have visibility, so you can achieve those goals and evolve in your career. And then no matter, again, if you would like to become a CISO or not, as you mentioned, Jenny, it's really important to have a mentor. They can help you evolve. They can help you keep on that confidence. They can help you learn new things. And by learning, I would definitely suggest anyone learn all the time.
You
there's
can
no
never stop
point.
Learning.
Yeah, you can't. It's just if you stop learning, you find yourself, honestly, I'm seeing myself, now I take a new smartphone. Let's take an example. I don't want to say any brand, but I will be like, oh, it's so different. So we need to learn all the time. It's not like because our background, we are more technologically savvy. No, not at all. We need to keep ourselves, updated and everything. And of course, at the end, my point would be take new opportunities. I mean, and this brings me back to diversity. A lot of information security female professionals, they actually don't take the new opportunities because they say, oh, I didn't do it before. I don't have the right experience. Well, if you did it before, why you're taking the same thing? You will not learn anything. So I don't understand why not take the challenge and learn it on the way.
I can't agree more on that because for me, if I get to do something new that I've never done, I will jump into it because that's the
Exactly.
only way to learn, putting yourself in that uncomfortable position and then, seeing way
Exactly.
up. I've always been thrown in the deep end. I mean, when I first started at IBM, first task was to go and install a big fat server for a customer, and I was like, oh, I've never done this. I was terrified, terrified to the point I even banged my car in the parking slot when I was trying to park because I was so nervous. I scratched my new car, my Landy at the time, and I was so terrified. Plus, I was like really upset, and then but after I've done it and I figured out how to do it, it's just like, oh, this is what I want to do, always get thrown in the deep end, then you learn something new. I
Yeah,
think that's a really
absolutely.
good point you made there. Females don't do that often. They think, oh, I haven't done this before, so I don't know if I'm good
Yeah.
at it. And the
I mean,
recruiters also look into that. We can go on about this topic for a long time, I think.
for sure, for sure. I mean, but again, what's the point if you have done it all before?
Yeah.
I
So you're
mean,
not learning something new, right?
yeah, exactly. So its objective is to evolve. Every time you go into a career, do something new. So you learn at least 30% new,
Yeah, and
40% new.
exactly, and allow yourself to fail.
Yeah.
That's another thing, because if you don't fail, or if you will not learn again, and then you will. I think this aspect should also come to the employers, the board, and the hiring people. They don't look at it enough.
Yeah,
They
that's
always
true. Yeah.
want the list of the qualification. If you look at the cybersecurity job role, the list goes on, and then every time you want a CISP, and I'm thinking, is that really a requirement sometimes for a certain job? I've seen job descriptions where they're looking for a junior analyst, right? And they want CISP. So what is that relationship?
Yeah,
It,
well, they didn't read properly the requirements for CISP first.
exactly, yeah.
Just with the
And
4 or 5 years of experience, right?
yeah. So I mean, and also, I mean, I've done CISP few times, and the other thing is like, what is a junior analyst going to do with the system? It's a more
Yes,
senior leadership training qualification, where a junior analyst is about first probably watching your logs, right? And then, are you matching the right skill set? Are you looking for the right person? So, and
but
also they want you to have some experience and have it done it before. Then you're not allowing somebody to learn properly, right?
yeah, definitely. But also, again, it's coming down to the point, to the fact that the general public doesn't have enough cybersecurity awareness and understanding. So we're just throwing some buzzwords and some words that we think that make sense, but they don't.
Mm. Yeah, I think it's just not just cybersecurity people. I think all of us should lead to take challenges we've never done before. That's the only way to keep young, and
I
learning.
can't agree more. Yeah, I can't agree more.
Yes.
I mean, especially now, like, the whole world is almost working remotely. So one thing that's really interesting, rather than, looking at the time and checking when this is over, you can also take the opportunity to learn something and take a new challenge.
Yeah.
You have been, trying to learn that language, or trying to get that certification, or trying to pass something, or whatever, even cooking, but try to learn something, give yourself some goals, and that will help you spend the time in something that is very productive and might even help your career.
Exactly. And then also I
Or
tell
maybe
my.
the cooking is only if you want to become a chef.
But you still can eat nice food, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I learned cooking. If you ask my husband, I'm a brilliant cook. I'm so good with my cooking. I'm even good at my own cookery book, and I just haven't had the time to
Nice.
publish. Yeah, so I used to bake cakes. When I came to UK, I didn't even know how to make a tea. That's how spoiled I was. But that changed so fast. YouTube, how do you cook this? How do you cook that? How do you make this? It was all YouTube got me into cooking because I was like going into, oh, if I don't cook, I'm going to starve, right? You're a student, you don't know how to cook. So
Yeah,
these
yeah,
things
yeah.
you have to learn. And I learned a lot of my cooking skills just by trying it out. And I became, at one point, I went into baking. And if you look at some of my Instagram, you see all the cakes. I became a professional cake maker, decorating, and now I'm really going into cooking. This is the time. I think people use this time as an opportunity to learn new things,
Yes, I
um,
agree. Totally.
and,
Yeah.
and connect with people you couldn't connect before. There's internet, and if you don't have internet, read a book. There's a lot of things you can do.
Yeah, and you can learn a lot from reading a book. I mean, I think with the internet, a lot of people stopped reading, but I am guilty as well. I mean, I don't read as before.
Yeah,
So, with the internet, we just Google things and we go on to reading, but
articles.
reading a physical book is actually super cool.
Yeah, and find a nice place to sit and read a nice book, and
Yeah,
that's the
exactly.
talent. My challenge now is I've loaded up so much stuff for myself, and I'm trying to think, where am I going to get this free time to do all this stuff? Because I don't have free time. Because I've
Yeah.
put so much training in place. I've put training for my team, and then I've also told my clients this is the best time to do that compliance project, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I'm trying to take them through the getting the policies run and then all this
Yeah.
compliance work in place, because it's quite a maybe, and you have more time that you're not traveling to work. So let's get things moving. And yeah, I so agree. Having those goals is so important. Sometimes your 6 months goals, because it's so uncertain sometimes in this current climate, having at least 6 months or 1 year goals is key.
Yeah,
At some
definitely.
point, we are all going to get this virus. It's just a matter of when. And are we going to survive? We don't know. Um, we just have to keep positive and then think, yes, we are going to survive. We're going to make it, and we're going to fight it. But seeing the statistics, it's worrying. There's people dying without even having underlying health condition. So we are uncertain whether we are going to survive or not. But we can't just lose hope. We just have to keep going and then think positive and think we are going to fight it and then get out of this soon. And or delay, until the vaccine comes out, because it's going to be around
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
12 months, right? So yeah, I can't agree with your points more. I want to ask if there's any questions from the audience.
Hi, Magna. I have a question.
Hello. Hi.
Thanks for joining us today. It's wonderful to see your presentation. I
Thank
had
you
a
very much.
question. A lot of times that I'm speaking to people, this comes up. They ask, they're having problems talking tech to business. Do you have any tips around that and how they can get better at that?
Tech to business. Yeah, first of all, and I try to never use, any technical jargons or words that they might not understand. So I always, like, when I explain encryption, I give an example of encryption as like having a physical security safe box where you put your physical passport, close it with a key. So I always use terms that they can understand, can relate to. If not, they will not, remember, they will not understand. I use a lot of, as well, simple images, and just relate to their physical life. What do they do in their daily lives, and just find scenarios that can be related to, cybersecurity. I very often ask them, do you go out of your house without closing the door of your house with a key? You leave your door wide open? And they're no. Or I tell them, do you actually write if a stranger stops you on the street, do you tell where you live? I'm like, no, how come? I can't. So I'm like, so why do you, share all this information on the internet? And they go, when, how? I'm like, yeah, well, your GPS coordinates are embedded in the images that you post with your camera on your iPhone, for example, on your smartphone. So this kind of things, I try really to bring to their daily lives, and then with scenarios that might impact their security as such. So then they become more aware. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Shani, you're on mute.
I do this all the time. If people want to connect with you, how do we? What's the best way to connect?
They can Google me and they can find me on all social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. I have all the, marketing profiles. They are on there where I'm available for questions and anything. They can reach out to me anytime.
Cool. And thank you so much. I just wanted to remind everyone, if you want to join, I think you're already a member probably on CISO, right? So join us. We are a nice community helping each other, and we are global. So that's the beauty of it. You don't have to find talent locally. We got a global community that supports each other and help each other. So join us. The best way to join the calls or the hear news about is to email info@cisoexec.org. We are big on LinkedIn. We got a company page as well as a group page, so the members get access to the group to have conversations with people. And then the company page also has a lot of information that we share. And we are trying to create that supportive community within the industry and help each other. So thank you so much again, Magda. It was lovely to have you. And,
thank you very much.
Keep in touch.
For inviting me. Yeah.
Yes, and stay safe.
Thank you. You too. You too, definitely. Bye-bye.
Bye.